The name Aileen Wuornos evokes a chilling image, that of a ruthless serial killer, often dubbed America's first female serial killer. For many, she represents pure evil, a cold-blooded murderer of men. But beneath the sensational headlines and media portrayals lies a story far more complex, tragic, and riddled with questions. This is not just the tale of a killer, but of a woman shaped by unimaginable trauma, a life on the margins, and a justice system grappling with the nuances of victimhood and culpability. We journey into the heart of a case that continues to provoke debate. Born Aileen Carol Pittman on February 29, 1956, in Rochester, Michigan, her life began with abandonment. Her father was incarcerated for child molestation and later committed suicide in prison. Her mother, just 15, deserted her shortly after birth. Aileen and her older brother, Keith, were sent to live with their maternal grandparents, Lori and Britta Wuornos, in Troy, Michigan. It was a chaotic and unstable environment, a prelude to a childhood that offered little love or security, and instead, became a crucible of profound suffering. From a very young age, Aileen endured horrific physical and sexual abuse. Her grandfather, Lori, was a violent alcoholic who beat her regularly. She later testified to being sexually abused by both Lori and a close family friend. By the age of 11, she was exchanging sex for cigarettes and drugs. These experiences, coupled with a lack of emotional support, created deep-seated psychological wounds that would fester throughout her life. The innocence of childhood was stolen, replaced by a brutal reality of exploitation and profound betrayal, leaving an indelible mark. At 13, Aileen became pregnant after being raped. She gave birth to a son, who was subsequently given up for adoption. This further compounded her feelings of loss and rejection. Soon after, having dropped out of school, she began working as a prostitute, a path she would largely follow for the rest of her life. Driven by desperation and a desperate need for survival, prostitution became her means to scrape by, a bleak continuation of the exploitation she had known since childhood. Her path veered sharply into a cycle of poverty and marginalization. Aileen's adult life was a constant struggle. She moved frequently, drifting across Florida, hitchhiking from town to town, staying in cheap motels or sleeping in her car. Her criminal record grew with arrests for petty larceny, assault, and passing bad checks, all intertwined with her life as a street prostitute. She was a transient, invisible to much of society, yet profoundly impacted by its underbelly. This itinerant existence mirrored her internal state, rootless, unstable, and perpetually searching for a sense of belonging or stability that always eluded her. In 1986, Aileen met Tyria Moore at a gay bar in Daytona Beach, Florida. Their relationship would become a central, often volatile, fixture in Wuornos' life. Tyria, initially a source of comfort and a glimmer of stability, became a complicit figure in Aileen's later crimes. Their bond was intense, marked by both love and dependency, providing Aileen with a connection she had long craved, yet ultimately leading her down an even darker path. This relationship offered a brief respite from her solitary existence before deepening her entanglement in crime. The horrific spree began in November 1989 with the murder of Richard Mallory, a 51-year-old electronics store owner. Wuornos later claimed Mallory had raped and brutally beaten her before she shot him in self-defense. His body was found in a wooded area in Volusia County, Florida. This initial act of violence set a terrifying precedent, establishing a pattern that would claim more lives. For Aileen, it was a desperate struggle for survival. For Mallory, it was the abrupt, tragic end of his life, a confrontation that proved fatal. Throughout her legal battles, Aileen Wuornos consistently maintained that her killings were acts of self-defense. She claimed that all 7 of her victims, whom she encountered while working as a prostitute, had either raped or attempted to rape her, threatening her life. She stated she fought back to survive, fearing for her safety. This narrative, while challenged by the prosecution, formed the core of her defense and became a central point of contention in the public discourse surrounding her case, polarizing opinions on her actions. After Mallory, a disturbing pattern began to unfold across Florida's highways. Between 1989 and 1990, 6 more men were found dead, all shot, primarily in remote, wooded areas. The victims were middle-aged, and their vehicles were often found abandoned nearby. Law enforcement quickly recognized the terrifying similarities, signaling the presence of a serial killer. The Sunshine State, known for its idyllic landscapes, was now shrouded in fear as authorities scrambled to connect the dots and stop the escalating violence, sending shockwaves through the community. The subsequent victims included David Spears, a 43-year-old construction worker, found dead in June 1990, Charles Carskadden, a 40-year-old rodeo worker, discovered later that same month, and Peter Seams, a 65-year-old merchant seaman whose car was later found abandoned. These men, from various walks of life, met similar gruesome fates. Their stories represent not just statistics, but individual lives abruptly and tragically ended, leaving behind families and communities devastated by senseless violence. Each death intensified the hunt for the perpetrator. The grim tally continued. Troy Burress, a 50-year-old sausage salesman, was found in August 1990, Walter Gibson, a 55-year-old former police chief, in September 1990, and Charles Humphreys, a 56-year-old security guard, in November 1990. Each man was shot multiple times, typically with a .22 caliber weapon, and robbed. The escalating body count sent a clear message to investigators: they were dealing with a highly dangerous and active serial killer. The geographic spread across Florida highlighted the elusive nature of the perpetrator, who was constantly on the move. The revelation of a female serial killer captivated and horrified the nation. Dubbed America's first female serial killer by the media, Aileen Wuornos became a sensational figure. Newspaper headlines screamed, television news channels ran endless reports, and talk shows debated the psychology behind such crimes. This intense public fascination often reduced her complex story to a simple caricature of evil, overlooking the profound suffering and systemic failures that define much of her life. The media circus both informed and distorted public perception. Connecting the disparate bodies across multiple counties presented a formidable challenge for law enforcement. Initial leads were scarce, with no immediate witnesses to the murders. However, detectives in different jurisdictions began to notice the striking similarities in the victims' profiles, cause of death, and the method of disposal. A multi-agency task force was eventually formed, pooling resources and information. This collaboration marked a crucial turning point, transforming isolated cases into a coordinated hunt for a cunning and ruthless killer. A critical breakthrough came with the discovery of Peter Seams' abandoned Cadillac in a remote area of Marion County. The car had been involved in an accident and subsequently abandoned. Forensic examination of the vehicle yielded valuable evidence, including fingerprints that were later matched to Aileen Wuornos' interior more. This discovery provided the first concrete link between Wuornos and one of the victims, transforming her from a suspect in a string of related crimes to a primary person of interest. It became an undeniable piece of the puzzle. While direct eyewitnesses to the murders were absent, some individuals recalled seeing Aileen Wuornos' interior more in possession of the victims' vehicles, often at gas stations or bars. These scattered descriptions, combined with the fingerprints, allowed police artists to create composite sketches of the two women. These sketches were then distributed to the public, turning the anonymous killer into a recognizable face, or at least a distinct possibility. The net was closing, slowly but surely, around the elusive perpetrator. With the sketches and fingerprint evidence, police intensified their efforts. They began surveillance on locations known to be frequented by Wuornos and more, including pawn shops where some of the victims' stolen items had been sold. Undercover officers monitored known hangouts, patiently waiting for a sighting. The investigation became a tense game of cat and mouse, with detectives meticulously tracking every potential lead. The pressure mounted as the task force closed in on their elusive target, hoping to prevent further violence. Tyria Moore, Aileen's girlfriend, was eventually located and brought in for questioning. Under intense pressure from investigators, who offered her immunity in exchange for her cooperation, Moore agreed to wear a wire and help police secure a confession from Wuornos. This decision was a turning point. Moore's internal struggle between loyalty and self-preservation ultimately led her to assist the authorities, providing the leverage they needed to crack the case wide open. Her testimony would be damning for Wuornos. Moore's cooperation ultimately led to Aileen Wuornos' arrest in January 1991. Initially, Wuornos denied everything, but over several days of interrogation, and realizing Moore had cooperated, she broke down. Aileen confessed to all 7 murders, providing graphic details of each encounter and the killings. Her confession, though later partially recanted, laid bare the terrifying scope of her crimes. It was a harrowing admission, offering a glimpse into the rage and desperation that fueled her violent acts, shocking even seasoned investigators. On January 16, 1991, Aileen Wuornos was apprehended at a biker bar in Volusia County, Florida. Her arrest immediately dominated national headlines. The public, already captivated by the lady serial killer narrative, devoured every detail. News channels ran endless segments, sensationalizing her image and often overlooking the complexities of her background. The capture brought a sense of relief to many, but also solidified her image as a monstrous figure, a stark departure from the vulnerable victim she sometimes claimed to be. Her face became instantly recognizable. The legal proceedings against Aileen Wuornos began in January 1992, with the trial for the murder of Richard Mallory. The prosecution, led by State Attorney John Tanner, presented a powerful case, portraying Wuornos as a cold-blooded killer who murdered for financial gain. They focused on her admissions to Tyria Moore and the physical evidence linking her to Mallory's death. The trial drew intense media scrutiny, with many eager to see justice served for the string of killings that had terrorized Florida, setting a precedent for subsequent cases. Wuornos' defense team, led by public defender Billy Nolis, argued that she acted in self-defense. They sought to portray her as a traumatized victim of lifelong abuse who snapped when confronted with further violence. They painted a picture of a woman desperate to survive, claiming her actions were a direct consequence of the predatory nature of her clients. The defense hoped to appeal to the jury's empathy, framing her not as a monster, but as a deeply wounded individual reacting to a life of perpetual danger and exploitation. A critical moment in the trial came with Tyria Moore's testimony. As a star witness for the prosecution, Moore recounted how Wuornos had confided in her about the murders, often describing them as acts of robbery rather than pure self-defense. Her testimony contradicted some of Wuornos' claims and significantly damaged the defense's argument. Moore's account provided crucial insight into Aileen's mindset and the motivations behind her actions, swaying public and judicial opinion against the self-defense narrative. Her words were a heavy blow to Wuornos' case. On January 27, 1992, after just 2 hours of deliberation, the jury found Aileen Wuornos guilty of the first-degree murder of Richard Mallory. The verdict was swift and decisive. Following a penalty phase, the jury recommended the death penalty, a recommendation the judge promptly upheld. Wuornos was sentenced to death. This conviction set a precedent for the remaining cases, signaling that her self-defense claims were not enough to spare her from the ultimate punishment. The legal battle had concluded, but her story was far from over. Following her conviction for the Mallory murder, Aileen Wuornos pleaded no contest to 4 additional murders: David Spears, Charles Carskadden, Troy Burress, and Walter Gibson. She later pleaded guilty to the murder of Charles Humphreys. These pleas resulted in 5 more death sentences, cementing her fate on Florida's death row. While she continued to oscillate between self-defense claims and admissions of guilt for money, the legal system had rendered its judgment, ensuring she would face the ultimate consequence for her actions. Her appeals, however, were just beginning. For the next decade, Aileen Wuornos remained on death row, engaged in a lengthy and complex appeals process. Her attorneys argued issues ranging from inadequate legal representation at trial to her alleged mental instability. The legal system meticulously reviewed her case, but each appeal was ultimately rejected. The sheer volume of her cases and the gravity of her crimes meant a prolonged legal battle, yet the outcome consistently leaned towards upholding the initial verdicts. The machinery of justice moved slowly, but inexorably, towards its final conclusion. A significant part of her appeals revolved around her mental health. Defense attorneys and some psychologists argued she suffered from borderline personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, and possibly other conditions exacerbated by her extreme childhood trauma. The core question was whether she was legally insane or competent to be executed. The prosecution maintained she was fully aware of her actions. This debate highlighted the complex intersection of mental illness, culpability, and the death penalty, raising profound ethical and legal questions about her punishment. Throughout her incarceration and appeals, Aileen Wuornos' story often shifted dramatically. She would claim self-defense, then admit to killing for money, then revert to tales of being assaulted. This inconsistency made it difficult for both the public and legal experts to fully grasp her true motivations or state of mind. Her conflicting narratives fueled public fascination but also undermined her credibility, making it harder for those seeking to understand her case with nuance. These shifting accounts further complicated the already complex narrative. During her time on death row at the Broward Correctional Institution, Aileen Wuornos gained increasing public notoriety. She engaged in correspondence with various individuals, including anti-death penalty advocates and filmmakers, further cementing her status as a controversial figure. Her erratic behavior and outspoken nature continued to make headlines, even within the confines of prison walls. Despite her isolation, her story continued to evolve in the public eye, turning her into a symbol for various debates surrounding crime and punishment. As her execution date loomed, Aileen Wuornos' final appeals were exhausted. A last-ditch effort for clemency was made to then Florida Governor Jeb Bush. Despite calls from some activists and mental health advocates to commute her sentence, Bush declined to intervene, citing the brutal nature of her crimes and the multiple death sentences. The decision sealed her fate, affirming the state's determination to carry out the sentence. The legal avenues had run their course, and the date for her execution was set. On October 9, 2002, Aileen Wuornos was executed by lethal injection at Florida State Prison in Rayford. She was 46 years old. In her final statement, she rambled about Jesus Christ and conspiracy theories, maintaining her innocence of the first murder. Her execution brought an end to a case that had dominated headlines for over a decade. It closed a chapter for the families of her victims, but for many others, it left lingering questions about justice, mental illness, and the complex factors that drove her to kill. A life that began in tragedy ended in controversy. Aileen Wuornos' execution reignited fierce debates across the nation. Advocates against the death penalty highlighted her history of abuse and alleged mental illness, questioning the ethics of executing such an individual. Proponents of capital punishment emphasized the horrific nature of her crimes and the need for retribution for her victims. Her case became a flashpoint for discussions on judicial fairness, societal responsibility, and the treatment of individuals with severe trauma within the criminal justice system. The public remained deeply divided on her legacy. Long after her death, Aileen Wuornos' story continued to capture public imagination, inspiring numerous books, documentaries, and a critically acclaimed feature film. The 2003 film Monster, starring Charlize Theron, brought a nuanced portrayal of Wuornos to a mainstream audience. It attempted to humanize her, exploring the depths of her trauma and the circumstances that led to her violence, while still acknowledging her horrific crimes. The film sparked further discussion, forcing audiences to confront the uncomfortable complexities of her life and actions. Charlize Theron's transformation into Aileen Wuornos was nothing short of extraordinary, earning her an Academy Award for Best Actress. Theron delved deep into the character, depicting Wuornos as a deeply damaged individual, simultaneously victim and perpetrator. Her performance challenged conventional perceptions of Wuornos, urging audiences to look beyond the monster label and consider the human being beneath. The portrayal ignited conversations about empathy, the causes of violence, and the ethical responsibility of art in depicting such controversial figures, leaving an indelible mark. Aileen Wuornos' legacy is undeniably complex and often contradictory. She remains a chilling figure in true crime history, a woman who brutally murdered 7 men. Yet, her story also serves as a stark reminder of the devastating impact of early trauma, poverty, and a life lived on society's fringes. She was a product of systemic failures, a victim who became a perpetrator. Her case continues to be dissected, debated, and analyzed, ensuring her place as one of the most disturbing and controversial figures in modern criminal history. The Aileen Wuornos case compels us to look beyond the sensationalism and the simplified evil woman narrative. It challenges us to confront uncomfortable truths about the origins of violence, the impact of profound abuse, and the responsibilities of a society that often overlooks its most vulnerable members. Her story is a testament to the fact that human behavior, even the most abhorrent, rarely stems from a single cause. By examining her life with a critical yet empathetic lens, we can begin to uncover deeper societal issues that demand our attention and understanding. Her path to violence was forged in a crucible of severe childhood trauma, abandonment, a lack of education, poverty, and untreated mental health issues. These factors did not excuse her actions but undeniably contributed to the trajectory of her life. Her case is a tragic illustration of how a cycle of abuse, neglect, and marginalization can culminate in devastating consequences. Understanding these contributing factors is not to condone her crimes, but to seek a deeper comprehension of the complex interplay between individual pathology and societal failings. While we delve into the complexities of Aileen Wuornos' life, it is crucial to never forget the victims whose lives were brutally cut short: Richard Mallory, David Spears, Charles Carskadden, Peter Seams, Troy Burress, Walter Gibson, and Charles Humphreys. They were individuals with families, friends, and futures that were violently taken from them. Their stories underscore the profound and irreversible impact of Wuornos' crimes, a stark reminder that behind every sensational headline are real people whose lives were tragically shattered. Their memory deserves respect and remembrance. The Aileen Wuornos case forces us to confront fundamental questions about the nature of evil. Is evil an inherent trait, or is it a byproduct of circumstance and environment? Was Wuornos born a monster, or was she molded into one by a lifetime of abuse and neglect? These are not easy questions, and her case offers no simple answers. It rather presents a chilling tapestry of human suffering, desperation, and depravity, challenging our preconceived notions of right and wrong, and the lines we draw between victim and perpetrator. The debate continues. Beyond the individual tragedy, the Wuornos case serves as a stark commentary on societal responsibility. It prompts us to consider how we treat the marginalized, how we intervene in cases of child abuse, and how we support individuals grappling with severe mental health issues. Could earlier intervention have altered her path? Could better support systems have prevented the spiral into violence? These are crucial questions for policymakers, social workers, and communities alike, urging us to reflect on our collective role in preventing similar tragedies. We must learn from the past. Aileen Wuornos' story continues to resonate in the annals of true crime, not merely as a sensational tale of murder, but as a profound and disturbing examination of the human condition. Her life, marked by trauma and violence, leaves an enduring impact on our understanding of criminal psychology, the justice system, and the deep-seated issues within society. It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths and acknowledge the intricate web of factors that can lead to such tragic outcomes. Her case remains a chilling, unforgettable chapter in history.